Hi and welcome to this DCP Web Blender 2.8 Eevee Gold Text and Hdr Eye Lighting tutorial. So the first thing we'll do is open up our web browser and we need to download a font like we normally do. So we'll go to free commercial fonts here. We'll click it. I'll put a link to this in the YouTube description as well. So let me just copy that. I'll make a link to this particular page and we'll scroll down and I'm going to pick the standard font that I normally pick on my tutorials, which is this one here. You can pick any font, but try and pick something that's quite thick. You don't want anything like white in it like this. You want like thick fonts like this, something simple, and then we'll click download. So I'll download this font. I downloaded the wrong one. Let's click this one here, and then we'll just right click, extract the font. You can use WinZip or any extraction, zip extraction, and then we'll rename this to fonts. Let's call it a good name. So now it's got fonts, and then we'll delete these two files. We're just left with the fonts here. And the next thing we want to do is go to another website called freepbr.com, and this will allow us to download some materials. So we want to make our text look like gold, right? And these are all different materials here, and you can see metals here, but you've got grass, and you can play around with all these different materials. Once you learn how to do this, you can apply any of these materials to the text that you're going to create. So you can pick any of these, but I would suggest that you go to page 2 and follow this tutorial and pick this gold. Then once you've done this tutorial, you can make it bronze, you can make it rusty, you can do any of these, and you can find other PBR websites with other materials as well. So let's click on the gold one, and we'll click on this scuffed gold Unreal Engine here, this one here, and we're going to drag and drop that into here, and then we'll just close this browser. We'll right click here, extract this zip file as well. We'll delete the zip file, and then we'll rename this to materials. Let's open up Blender, and then we will, like usual, go file, save as. We'll go to, we're in the right folder already, so all we need to do is just call it gold text -01. This will be the first version of this gold text, and the first thing we're going to do is delete the cube. So we'll select it and press the delete key, press shift and A, and we insert a plane. Now we've got this little plane. We're going to press S on the keyboard. S will allow us to scale, and we're going to press 20. We're going to scale it by 20. So now we've got this floor, we can say, yeah? We're going to go to object mode and select edit mode. And you can move between object and edit mode by hitting the tab key. One thing to note, if you've not used Blender before and this is all brand new to you, you don't know anything about 3D, sort of this 3D software, then check the link in the YouTube description where I've put a beginner's tutorial, yeah? And you might want to go through that first. So to go between object and edit mode, we can use the tab key on the keyboard. So we'll hit the tab key and we're going to do an edge select. So we're going to click this one here to select an edge of this square, and we're going to select this edge here. We're going to press E, and E allows us to extrude, and then we're going to press Z because we're going to extrude it on the vertical axis, and we're going to extrude it by 20 as well. So now we've got this wall, and now we've got this floor. We're going to click back on this this edge here, and we're going to move our mouse to around this point here. Press Ctrl B to create a bevel. We'll move our mouse upwards in the upwards direction, and then when we get to something like this, we want to rotate the mouse wheel upwards to create segments like this. Then we'll left click to confirm. We'll press the tab key to go back into object mode here. So we'll use the tab key, and then we'll right click on this and smooth, shade smooth, and that will make it nice and smooth here. Let's save this. Let's press number 7 on our keyboard. That takes us into the top view, and then we'll press shift and A to insert some text. So here's our text. We're going to press the tab key and delete this text and type in whatever you like. I'm typing in DCP Web. We'll press tab again, and we'll go to the object data here, click that, and then we want to change the font. So we'll click font, and we'll open up the folder. We'll go to this font and select this one and open it, and then we'll make our size 3 to make it bigger. And then we'll go to object, set origin, geometry to origin. That will center it out here, and then we want to go to, let's middle mouse click, and we can rotate it around. Let's just zoom out a little bit. We'll click here and move the object up. Then we'll press R to rotate, and we're going to rotate it on the x-axis along the width, and we're going to rotate it 90 degrees, so that's forward facing like this. And we just want to add a bevel to it, so let's go to geometry, not a bevel, we want to extrude it, and we'll extrude it to 0.1. Now we've got this text here, and it's got some depth to it, right? It's got some thickness to it. Okay, now the next thing we want to do is we should save this. Control S to save, go to object, and then go to convert, and convert it to a mesh. Now when we press the tab key to go into edit mode, we can see that it's a mesh based object. And we'll press tab again one more time, and we want to go into edit mode. So make sure you select edit mode here, or press the tab key to go into edit mode. We will press the letter A to select this object, and then we'll go to mesh, and we'll go to clean up, and we'll select remove doubles. And what you'll notice here, down here it says vertices, or the vertices is 5012 here. And if we go to mesh, clean up, and remove doubles, that will get rid of almost half of the vertices, and it's just cleaned up this object. So we press tab again. Now the text looks the same, but it's got less of these vertices. We've removed all of the doubles. Sometimes when it converts a text object into a mesh, there'll be two vertices in exactly the same place. We don't want that. So now we've got this text here. Let's save it, Control S. And we want to go to UV editing here, and what we want to do is unwrap this text, yeah? So we want to unwrap it and place it onto this UV map here. And basically what we're doing is almost like flattening out the text so that we can paint on top of it. Think of it a bit like this. If you go onto YouTube and look at UV unwrapping for Blender, you'll find lots of good tutorials there. We're going to do a basic one, just like almost like an automated one. But then when it comes to unwrapping more complicated objects, you really want to unwrap them manually. So have a look at some tutorials on YouTube about that. I'll try and make some in the near future as well. So all we want to do is move our mouse cursor over the object. It's already selected because you can see it's orange, or highlighted orange. We'll press the letter U on our keyboard, U for umbrella, and then we'll do Smart UV Project. We'll click that, and then we'll just click OK. And then it's unwrap this object onto this UV editor here, right? So we can see the UV map here. So this is just flattened it all out. It's almost like cutting around it and just flattening out the object so that we can put a material over the top of it. This is quite an important step. Let's go File Save. And let's just quickly go back to the layout. And in the layout, we want to select the object and then go to Material and give it a material. And just set the base color to black for now. And then we want to go to Render here. So we can see the black text here, right? It's got a black material. Now we want to go to shading. So we'll click shading tab up here, and we can see the node editor with that material we just created for it. So this is that same material, that black material we just created, and we want to go to the desktop, right? So I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm going to go to this folder. Let's just put this into list view, this folder here, and click in that materials folder that we downloaded, right? The scuffed material. And then we'll go back to the thumbnail so we can see the thumbnails, and we're going to click on this one here. There's two here, right? These two are base colors, so they're quite similar, they're just slightly different shades, and there's two options here, so you can play around with these quite easily. We'll drag this one in. So what I want to do at the minute is, let's just drag this up. Let's just rotate this text around to around here, something like this. We'll get it zoomed in a little bit. I'm just changing the size of these windows to make it easier for you to see what's going on here. Let's do something like that. And I want to zoom in a little bit here so it's a bit easier for you to see. We'll drag this one into the node editor, and all we need to do is just drag this color to this base color. So that replaces that black color with this base color here. Now we've got these other options, so we're not going to use this one, we don't need it, because we can only use one of these two. Now this one here tells us, if we look at the name of it, it's called at the very end of this line it's called gold scuffed metallic.png. So if I drag and drop it into here, you'll see it's written here. Let's zoom. Let's try to zoom in here. It's called gold scuffed metallic, right? Metallic.png, and this one's called base color. So this is, look, it's written here base color. This one's written metallic. It's going to connect to this metallic. So what we do is change it to non-color data. The only one that has color data in it will be the base color, this one. All the rest of these will all be non-color data. So we just drag that and drop it into here. Now it's got this metallic base, basically, or this metallic material connected. Now we've got the normal here, and we've got the roughness. So let's drag the roughness here. So this is called roughness, and in here you can see roughness here. So all we're going to do is select non-color data and drag this into the roughness. So now you can start to see that gold effect. And this is called Hdr Eye Lighting in here. See this sphere is giving us the lighting. So you should see little tinges of green, and it's like using this HDR eye image to light the objects. So we're going to do that afterwards as well ourselves. So here you can see it's looking like gold now, right? It's looking pretty good. It's nice and shiny. It's got all these little artifacts on it. It's got all these little scuffs and scratches and stuff, because that's what the material looked like. We're going to zoom right into this letter P. Any letter really, we want to get quite close to it though. And then we've got this last one here called normal. This is the normal map. And with this one, let's just make a little bit more space here. We're going to drag the normal map here. And this gives some of the elements on this material, give them like some height, or it will be like little dents and some little dents and scratches will show through better. Think of it that way. Let's just drag this across a little bit to give some space. And we want to press Shift A, and we want to insert, let's search for it. It's called a bump. We want to insert a bump map here. So we've got this bump map here, and we're going to set non-color data, and we're going to take the vector, the color here, and we're going to drag it to the height. So it's connected to the height here. And then we'll drag the normal and connect it to this normal here. Now, if I zoom in, can you see these little dents and these little dents? We can change the strength of them. So we can remove them totally, or we can have these little scratches, like it's almost like little dents, like someone's gone along and hammered into this with a little chisel or something, right? And you can invert them, so you can have them as bumps. Sometimes when you change the settings, you have to just move the camera slightly in here, move the perspective just to get it working again. So you can invert it. Now they're getting pushed out rather than pushed in. We want to dent them in, right? But we don't want them so prominent. We want something like this. So that's it. That's our gold text done. It's looking pretty good. The unwrapping was quite good as well, so we don't see any sort of real issues here. And this might look wrong here, but this is actually scratches in the material, yeah? You can see there's like these scratches where someone's scratched the material. So this is pretty much done. This looks okay. So let's go back to our layout. So we'll click layout here. And when we look at the layout, we can see that it just doesn't look the same, right? Although we've got a light source, even if we grab this light source, so we press number 7 and we drag this light source. Let's drag the light source, click on the light source and drag it to the front of the text. And then even if you drag it down, move the light around, it just, you can start to see like some of the colors coming through, but it just doesn't look that great. So let's fix that. What we need to do is use a Hdr Eye Lighting. So to do that, what we need to do is go to the world. We need to click use nodes. And then we're going to go to a website. So let's open up our browser again. and we're going to go to this website called hdrihaven.com. So I'll put a link to this in the YouTube description. Scroll down and you can see browse 200 plus HDRI images, and then you can basically select any of these and they'll all give different light effects to the gold itself. So let's pick one. Let's just pick this one. We'll click on it, and then we'll click. You can download higher resolution one. I'm going to click the 2K one, so we'll click that, and we download it. And let's open up this folder again, and then we're going to drag and drop this into here. So we'll leave this open. Maybe we'll test a few other ones as well afterwards. So let's minimize this for a minute. And then we're going to go back to Blender. Let's just go to File, Save. And we're going to, let's see. We will move our mouse cursor in between these two windows, the left and this middle section here. So move it so that you see your mouse cursor like this. We're going to right click and then say Split Area. And then we're going to drag down to around here. Now we've got two windows split, top and bottom, and what we will do is in this top one we're going to click here and select shader editor here. Now we can see the shader editor, and we want to click here and select world. So we want to click on this background. We don't need it, so we can just delete it. We'll delete the background. We're going to press Shift A, and we're going to insert a environmental texture here. And then we're going to open this. It's called Museum, right? This one here, this image we just downloaded. We're going to open that one. Click Open, and pretty much everything you can leave in here the same. We can play around with these in a minute, and we just drag and drop this to here. And now you can see our text. It's got all of this shine coming off of the this HDRI image, right? So if we just drag this up a little bit, zoom out, you can see the scene. So this is where all the light sources from the top and all of these different angles, and that's reflecting off of this object to give it all its color and its dimension. It looks really nice now, right? So what we can do now is have a little play and see what some other ones look like. So let's quickly download maybe two other ones, and we'll see how they affect the lighting on the object. So we've got this museum one. Let's click the back button and go back to these images here. Let's see. Let's go back one more time, and we'll go back to the main listings, and we'll flick through some of these, and maybe we'll pick. Let's pick this Tears of Steel. Let's do this one. So we've got this image here. We'll click the 2K version, download it. We'll drag that into here, and then we'll go back to Blender. Let's just drag this window down a little bit. We'll select this folder to open the image, and we'll select this one here and click Open. And now you can see that's made quite a difference to our text, right? These HDR images and the lighting that it has, the effect of the lighting, sometimes it's worth selecting mirrorball, because mirrorball sometimes gives you a bit of a better effect. So you can play around with these, and you know the different HDR images are going to give you different sort of effect on this text here. So let's try one more and then we'll be done. Maybe we'll try this Shanghai. It's got some nice colors in it, right? So let's download the 2K. We'll drag that into here. Let's go back to Blender. We'll open this folder here. We'll select this one and click Open. And now we can see the text. And it's got like some of these nice effects to it. You can select change between these options to see the difference, right? Between this option here, the regular, and this mirror ball here. I think the mirror ball like curves the whole HDR image, right? If we select, you can see this is like flat here. The environment, it's wrapped all the way around. But then when you do mirror ball, kind of does this to the image. I need to read up more about that, but you can see the effect that it has on the text, right? That's the difference between the two. So let's do a couple of other things quickly before we finish. We'll select mirror ball. I think what we'll do is use the museum one, because I quite like the colours on this one. It kind of suits the gold bit better. And we'll go back to, what we can do is just move our mouse cursor in between these two windows, the top and the bottom. We'll right click and say join area, and then we'll click to the top, click up here somewhere, and that will move this window up, and now it's joined to the top. Let's click on this surface and we'll go to material, new material, and we'll set it to black. And then we just want to reduce the specular to something like this. Really, the light source in here, we don't need it. This light, we can just delete it. This one here, we don't need that anymore, so let's just delete it. And then let's go back to the plane, and we can play around with these settings now. One thing we can do is go to render, and we can do bloom. We can turn that on. We can turn on the reflections as well, and subsurface scattering. Then if we go back to the plane, let's go back here to this material, then we can play around with these settings and we can adjust. In fact, one thing we should do is go back to the render and set the viewport samples to 120. We'll see some more detail now, and set the render samples to 120. It'll just be a bit clearer to see what's going on this floor. Otherwise, at such a low sample rate, it's not going to be very easy to see. So we'll click on the plane, we'll click on the material, and then normally metallic. Normally I leave this off, right? Because the floor is not metallic. You can make it metallic if you want, but I don't want it to be metallic. I want to adjust it so that we can see some of this text reflecting off of the surface here, like this. And probably what we need to do is let's press number 7. Zoom out a little bit. We want to move this text closer to this wall, so we just select it. Let's click it. Let's click on the text, and we're going to drag it backwards, so around here. Then we can go back to the camera view, so we can see what the camera sees. We really don't want to do that, so let's just middle mouse click and rotate around. Let's try and get the text roughly where we want it. So around here, that's roughly where we want the text. We'll press Control, Alt and 0. That will move our camera to that particular view. And then we can click, we can press the letter N on our keyboard and lock camera to view. Then we can hold down the Control key and use our mouse wheel to zoom out a little bit. So this is what the camera is going to see. And then we can shift and middle mouse click to, pan around and get to a certain position that we like. So let's save, Control S, and then press F12. And we can see the text rendered out as it is. And if we rotate this, let's just take off the camera view here, and we'll middle mouse click. Let's just zoom in a little bit. We want to probably, yeah, I think that's okay actually. That should be okay. Let's just go back to our camera view. And we'll press F12 again. You can see it's quite blown out here because of the bloom. So if we go to our render settings here, tick on the bloom, and then reduce its radius to something like this. Then when we rotate this camera, you'll see that reflection there, right? Against the text. Let's just file save. Let's press number 7 and zoom out. And we'll click on this plane up. Let's click on the plane, press S to scale it, and we're going to scale it on the X axis, scale it out a little bit like this. And then let's go back to the camera. And the reason I scaled it out is because if I let's go to the camera here, and let's lock it here, and then we can rotate it around here. So if I were to take a picture, if I were to render it now, it's going to render some of this background here, you see. So if I press F12, we'll get some of that HDR background getting rendered out. This is why I made the stage wider, so that when we animate this camera, like maybe move it across the text or do something with it, then we won't, unless we move to an extreme angle, we won't really see that, right? The background is HDR background. So maybe we'll move this camera back a little bit, get it text centered like this. So what I'm going to do is have I'm going to hold down the shift key in the middle mouse wheel to move the camera to the side here, to the left side here, and then middle mouse click to rotate it and try and get this text to start on an angle, get it in a bit closer. So I want the text to be something like this. Let's get rid of this side panel for the minute. So we'll press N. We can still see some of this. Let's get in a bit closer. And we'll go to our render settings and let's just reduce that bloom, something like this. Okay, so I'm going to hit the record button and I'll press, make sure the camera is selected. I'll press I to insert a location, rotation and scale. We'll move to frame, let's make it quite short. We'll move to frame 90 and we should be able to still move our camera because it's locked in the viewport, so we can just shift the middle mouse click and rotate around, maybe zoom out a bit to somewhere like here, and then we'll move to frame 140, and then we just want to get the text something like this, and then we'll hit the record button, go back to the first frame and play it. That looks okay for now. You can play around with that. We'll save this. Let's go back to the first frame. We've got 140 frames, so we'll set the end frame to 140. Let's just save this and then we'll go to our render settings. Normally I'll render these out as JPEG, PNG files first and then render the video out afterwards, but I'm going to save us a bit of time and just go straight to AVI RAW. Normally I'll do PNG files, so check my beginner's tutorial where we did PNG files first and then created a video sequence afterwards. But I'm just going to go straight to AVI RAW, click RGB, and then we'll navigate to that same folder, and yeah, that'll do. And we'll press Control and F12. And we'll just wait for Blender to render out all of these frames and create the video. So I'll pause this video while this is happening and then we'll check it afterwards. Okay, so Blender's finished rendering out all of the frames for the video clip. We'll close this. Let's just go to File, Save. We'll minimize, and then we'll minimize this, and then we should have an AVI file here. And we'll open it up and we can see that end product, or the end result of this gold text. So it looks pretty good and it rendered out quite fast, and material looks good. Light effects look quite nice. And that's how we go about creating this sort of gold style text in Blender. Now you can go and experiment with other materials, right? It doesn't have to be gold, could be anything you want. Any of those PBR materials, any ones that you find that have these attributes to them, you can put them into Blender and you can create something nice like this with Hdr Eye Lighting. So let's maybe have a little bit of fun quickly. What we'll do, just to finish off, we'll go back to this. Let's just see what happens. Let's have a little experiment. Maybe we'll try something like rock here. It's got quite a lot of texture to it. Let's just see. I've not really tried this type of material yet, so let's see what happens. Call it material rock. Let's go back to Blender. Let's go to UV editing. Sorry, our shading here, shading. And we'll drag this up. We need to go into render view, yeah? Click render. Make sure you click this option here to render it. And we want to click on the text, and we can see all the materials that we created before. So the bump, we can probably just leave that there. Let's just get rid of all of these. We can just click on them and delete them. So just click and hit the delete key. We'll leave the bump map there because we're going to need that. Let's go back and find that rock material. Then we've got the this is the, sometimes the base surface is called Albedo. They've given it a different name. So let's try this here. Let's click this and we'll drag that into the base here. So that will be like the material sort of style. Then we've got, what we've got here, we've got the height. This is the metalness. So let's drag that. We know where that one goes. So we didn't want to do that. Let's drag that back into here. Let's select non-color data, drag that into the metallic. And then this is the normal DX. This is the, done that one. This is the roughness. So we drag the roughness here. Let's see if we connect this to the bump map. Let's see what happens. sometimes you gotta be careful when you drag these in. If you drag them in between, so I need to really zoom out. I'm only zoomed in quite close so you can see it, but this will be the normal, right? So we drag that color to the height here, and we'll set it to non-color data, and then drag the normal to the normal here. You can play around with these settings, experiment with it, and see what sort of effect. Let's go back to our layout here. Now we've got like this sort of rock material. Let's just try and render it, see what it looks like. So it's a completely different material we applied, but it didn't work out too badly. Kind of works. I think maybe if we play around with the settings more, we could improve that. There are some other options in here. This is the height map, so this is a specific height map. So maybe it would be better to use that rather than this normal map. So let's delete the normal map, and this is called a height map. So let's try and plug it into the height here. Yeah, that's much better. Now it really looks like some of this stuff is popping out. So that's another good example. This is let's change let's go to here and go to in fact what we'll do, so let's select an object. We can go to world, click world, let's zoom out a little bit, and we'll change the world to see how that affects it. So let's try that Shanghai one. Let's try the steel bridge. Now you can see the text here. It's looking like it's got bumps and looks like rock, doesn't it? So it looks good. But obviously that would have been applied to a wall somewhere. We could apply that to the floor maybe. You can experiment, right? Now it's down to you to just go and play with the different materials, play with the Hdr Eye Lighting, and you can experiment and pretty much create a really good looking text. So that's the end of this tutorial. I will go to file save. I'm going to save it like this, but normally I would have put back the gold material, but I can do that later. We can close this. Let's close this. Let's just check our video one more time. And that was kind of the end result that we was looking for, something similar to this. You could have done anything with this text. You could have spun around 360. You could have had it zoom in at an angle. You can do whatever you want. It's down to you now. So we'll close this. Hope you enjoyed that tutorial. Hope you find it useful, and I look forward to seeing you in the next DCP Web tutorial.